Sorry about that. We're dealing with an errant doggy. Yes, Potato, I hear you whining. What is it that you want? What is it that you want? There we go. Whoa. Wowza. Okay. Well, that was fun. Let me go. Hello. Okay. Hopefully we do not have to break for doggo, but I do not know. We brought Potato upstairs, and he is a little upset about the fact that he is locked upstairs. With me, I might add. But he's being a little silly and energetic. So we'll see what happens. We might have to flex and, be adaptive as things go. Okay. Oh, I need to do... I am so behind, man. I am... Wowza. It's, Okay. Twitch.tv/ that should be / huh? Netbox / Baron _ the Regal Beagle. Yeah, okay. Beautiful. All right. Now we need to put that over here as well and make sure that they know that I'm streaming. Okay. I am like so behind on anything. All of my notifications I was going to send out. Blah, 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 blah. I am still neck deep in my my coding and slide making for my paper that I'm trying to get done for school. Hey, is this? Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, feel free to watch the VOD. We're gonna be reading The Raven just for you, my dear Corvid man. Anyway, yep, go hang out with Toast or whatever. Have fun. I'll catch you around. No worries. Huzzah! No, seriously, go do what you need to do. It's not a big deal. The VOD will be there. Don't worry. Yes. So this reading of The Raven is dedicated to Znis, who we are trying to convince. Okay, yes, off to sleep. That's an even better idea. That sounds wonderful. I got like no sleep last night. Anytime, my friend, anytime. Yeah, so oh my goodness. This dog is sitting there and just like whining. Hey, don't calm down. So the problem is he just had his surgery, so he can't like run down the stairs and everything. But anyway. All right. So we will make a spirited attempt to read this and not get too interrupted by the dog. You know what? I'm gonna go check up on the dog since the dog's over there and he's whining. So I'm gonna go to the dog and I'm gonna talk to him and tell him you gotta stop whining. So I'll be right back. Dog. Doggerino. when I said that, he immediately turned and looked at me with his ears up. Ah, this dog. Oh. So B is trying to get set up with her stuff downstairs because she's got to go to an event, and the dog only wants mommy. That's it. All he wants. But anyway, I knew. Yes, you are the actual worst. He's the actual worst. You let him.
Oh, fuck it up. Dude, you have open access and you didn't even realize. You could have been playing in my room.
Hold on 1 sec. Poor Ness is gonna have to go through quite a bit of this little VOD before we get to the Raven.
What?
Oh, I'm reading the Raven for someone.
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry.
Oh no, you're good. We haven't started yet.
Hi,
so he's going to sleep. He's gonna check out the VOD, but like first half of the VOD is gonna be Potato, stop doing that. Let's go. Come on.
You should figure out at what time you start and just send
just send him. Yeah.
Ignore everything up to this point.
Yeah.
Potato baby, come here.
We're already like 11 minutes in.
Potato.
Potationes.
I don't know the person or channel.
Yeah, I don't care. Potato is being potato.
Hey, buddy.
Oh.
Oh my gosh. I need to get this done.
I know.
Absolutely should have done it before when he was in here. I did not.
I'm sorry. Maybe give him his pills.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll take a little while to kick in, but. I got you captured for posterity. I said I got you captured for posterity. Right? Sound just like them. Oh man. You probably didn't actually catch that. B was singing something and it was really funny. But anyway, with that minor interruption, let's see, we're at 12 minutes now. See how long we can keep this going. All right. Why don't we actually try reading the poem? So, this is for you. See, now I'm like, I don't know, like this pressure, you know? Anyway, I'll stop. The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more. Ah, distinctly I remember, it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow. Sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And this silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. Some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. It is this, and nothing more." Presently, My soul grew stronger, and hesitating then no longer. Sir, said I, or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is I was napping when so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping, tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, Lenore? This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word Lenore. Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning. Soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. Surely, said I, surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then where that is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind and nothing more. Here I flung the shutter open, when, with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a moment stop or stayed he, but with mane of lord or lady perched above my chamber door, perched upon the bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevance bore, for we cannot help agreeing that there is no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door with such a name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, Other friends have flown before, on the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, Nevermore. Startled at this stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, Doubtless, said I, what it utters is only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore of nevermore. But the raven, still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy upon fancy, fancy unto fancy, linking, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing, to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed by an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, cried I, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee respite, and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget the lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still of bird or devil, whether tempter said or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore. Desolate, yet all undaunted on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted. Tell me truly, I implore, is there balm of Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still of bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aden, it shall clasp a sainted maiden whom the angels named Lenore, clasp a rare and radiant maiden whom the angels named Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of thy soul has spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above the chamber door, and his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is gleaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor, and my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. Yay! Sorry, I had a couple of hiccups, but it wasn't too bad. I feel like I'm getting better. But anyway. So that was, hey, Floof, how you doing? Good to see you. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to get a little better at this whole reading aloud thing, but you know, takes practice, and also trying to make sure I don't kill my voice. Drinking some tea. I hope your day is going well, Mr. Floof. Good to see you. Good to see you indeed here. So if you missed it, I apologize. We just finished The Raven. But I was going to go off and do another story. So we have to play a little game here of make this look better. Let's see. So we go like this. It really stinks that the all right. Not you. You. Okay. I'll just cover. I'll cover myself. It's fine. Actually, we can do like this, huh? That, huh? And then we can move like that. Oh, this makes like no sense to you who can't see what I'm doing, but it'll make sense in a moment. I promise. Whatever. We're just gonna cover the whole thing. Well, I hope you enjoyed my face because it's going away. Actually, you know what? I think I would like to be on top. But we could just shove me off into the corner like that. There we go. Ta-da! And hopefully you can read the text and you can see me. Huzzah! Mark, what's going on? There are people coming in here. So weird. Good to see you. Awesome. So we just finished reading out The Raven because it's pretty short. But we came across, where was it? Whose stream was it? Someone's stream. There was a game, and Carcosa was the name of the place. Oh, it was someone who was playing. Yeah, there's a new game that came out that's got a lot of like Lovecraftian elements to it. Yeah, so the King in Yellow is where Carcosa is kind of known for, or what it's known for, right? The King in Yellow, Cthulhu, that whole mythos. But that's not the original mention of it. It was originally mentioned here by Ambrose Bierce. This is the first appearance of Carcosa, and then was taken up by something W. Chambers. Anyway, who wrote The King in Yellow, which is a set of short stories kind of around that play. And he used the name of the city from the Ambrose Bierce story. I don't know if he was doing it. I mean, in some way he was, referencing Bierce. I don't know if he explicitly referenced it, but anyway. So yes. So I was like, well, you know what would be fun? Let's read the original appearance of Carcosa. Actually, yes. Fans of the HBO series True Detective will be familiar with the term Carcosa. The short story is the origination of that term. It appears in this story first and then is used by Robert Chambers. There we go. In the famous supernatural short story collection, The King in Yellow. And of course, The King in Yellow has a lot of, although it predates a lot of Lovecraft, I believe, it's got a lot of what we now call Lovecraftian elements in it, and so it's the mythos of that and Lovecraft have sort of merged in popular culture. So you'll see, a lot of like King in Yellow and Carcosa references in Lovecraft and Lovecraft adjacent stuff. Which I'm a fan of a bunch of Lovecraft stuff. You have to get past the fact that he was so racist that in the 1920s people called him racist, and that takes some effort. So but and it does show up in some of his stories. Like you can tell, you're like, oh that's kind of problematic, huh? That's not great. But I'll give him this. He came up with he managed to take his anxieties and put them down on paper in a very tantalizing way. Anyway. So this is An Inhabitant of Carcosa by Ambrose Bierce, which I have never read before. The text is small, so I'm going to mess it up, but that's fine. For there be divers sorts of death, some wherein the body remaineth, and in some it vanisheth quite away with the spirit. This commonly occurreth only in solitude, such is God's will, and none seeing the end, we may say that man is lost or gone on a long journey, which indeed he hath. But sometimes it hath happened in sight of many, as abundant testimony showeth. In one kind of death the spirit also dieth. And this it hath been known to do while yet the body was in vigor for many years. Sometimes, as is veritably attested, it dieth within the body, but after a season it is raised up again in that place where the body did decay. Pondering these words of Halley, whom God rest, and questioning their full meaning as one who, having an intimation, yet doubts if there be not something behind other than that which he has discerned, I noted not whether I had strayed into a sudden chill wind striking my face, revived in me a sense of my surroundings. I observed with astonishment that everything seemed unfamiliar. On every side of me stretched a bleak and desolate expanse of plain, covered with tall overgrowth of sear grass, which rustled and whistled in the autumn wind with heaven knows what mysterious and disquieting suggestion. Protruded at long intervals above it stood strangely shaped and somber colored rocks, which seemed to have an understanding with one another and to exchange looks of uncomfortable significance. as if they had reared their heads to watch the issue of some unforeseen event. A few blasted trees here and there appeared as leaders of this malevolent conspiracy of silent expectation. The day, I thought, must be far advanced, though the sun was invisible, and although sensible that the air was raw and chill, my consciousness of that fact was rather mental than physical. I had no feeling of discomfort. Over all the dismal landscape, a canopy of low, lead-covered clouds hung like a visible curse. In all this, there was a menace and a portent, a hint of evil, an intimation of doom. Bird, beast, or insect, there was none. The wind sighed in the bare branches of the dead trees, and the gray grass bent to whisper its dread secrets to the earth. But no other sound nor motion broke the awful repose of that dismal place. I observed in the herbage a number of weather-worn stones, evidently shaped with tools. They were broken, covered with moss, and half sunken in the earth. Some lay prostrate, others leaned at various angles, none was vertical. They were obviously headstones of graves, although the graves themselves no longer existed as either mounds or depressions. The years had leveled all. Scattered here and there, more massive blocks showed where some pompous tomb or ambitious monument had once flung its feeble defiance at oblivion. So old seemed these relics, these vestiges of vanity and memorials of affection and piety, so battered and worn and stained, so neglected, deserted, forgotten the place that I could not help thinking to myself, the discoverer of the burial ground of a prehistoric race of men whose name was long extinct. Filled with these reflections, I was for some time heedless of the sequence of my own experiences, but soon I thought, how came I hither? A moment's reflection seemed to make this all clear and explain at the same time, although in a disquieting way, the singular character with which my fancy had invested all that I saw and heard. I was ill. I remembered now that I had been prostrated by a sudden fever, and that my family had told me that in my periods of delirium, I had constantly cried out for liberty and air, and had been held in bed to prevent my escape out of doors. Now I had eluded the vigilance of my attendants, and had wandered hither to where? I could not conjecture. Clearly, I was at considerable distance from the city where I dwelt, the ancient and famous city of Carcosa. No signs of human life were anywhere, visible or audible. No rising smoke, no watchdogs bark, no lowing of cattle, no shouts of children at play, nothing but that dismal burial place with its air of mystery and dread, due to my own disordered brain. Was I not becoming again delirious, there beyond human aid? Was not indeed all an illusion of my madness? I called aloud the names of my wife and sons, reached out my hands in search of theirs, even as I walked among the crumbling stones and in the withered grass. A noise caused me to turn about. A wild animal, a lynx, was approaching. The thought came to me, if I break down here in the desert, if the fever return and I fail, this beast will be at my throat. I sprang towards it, shouting. It trotted tranquilly by within a hand's breadth of me and disappeared behind a rock. A moment later, a man's head appeared to rise out of the ground a short distance away. He was ascending the farther slope of a low hill, whose crest was hardly to be distinguished from the general level. His whole figure soon came into view against the background of gray cloud. He was half naked, half clad in skins. His hair was unkempt, his beard long and ragged. In one hand he carried a bow and arrow, in the other a blazing torch with a long trail of black smoke. He walked slowly and with caution, as if he feared falling into some open grave concealed by the tall grass. This strange apparition surprised but did not alarm, and taking such course as to intercept him, I met him almost face to face, accosting him with a familiar salutation, "God keep you." He gave no heed, nor did he arrest his pace. Good stranger," I continued, I am ill and lost. Direct me, I beseech you, to Carcosa." The man broke into a barbarous chant, an unknown tongue passing on and away. An owl on a branch of a decayed tree hooted dismally and was answered by another in the distance, looking upward until I saw a sudden rift in the clouds. Aldebaran and the Hyades. The Hyads. I'll have to look that up. I'm not sure what that is, what that reference is. In all this, there was a hint of night. The lynx, the man, the torch, the owl. Yet I saw even the stars in absence of the darkness. I saw, but was apparently not seen or heard. Under what awful spell did I exist? I seated myself at the root of a great tree, seriously to consider what best to do. That I was mad, I could no longer doubt, yet recognizing a ground of doubt in the conviction. Of fever, I had no trace. I had withal a sense of exhilaration and vigor, altogether unknown to me, a feeling of mental and physical exhalation. My senses seemed all alert. I could feel the air as a ponderous substance. I could hear the silence. A great root of the giant tree against whose trunk I leaned as I sat, enclosed in its grasp a slab of stone, a part of which protruded into a recess formed by another root. The stone was thus partly protected from the weather, although greatly decomposed. The edges were worn around, its corners eaten away, its surface deeply furrowed and scaled. Glittering particles of mica were visible in the earth, where its earth about its vestiges of its decomposition. The stone had apparently marked a grave, out of which the tree had sprung ages ago. The tree's exacting roots had robbed the grave and made the stone a prisoner. A sudden wind pushed the dry leaves and twigs from the utmost face of the stone. I saw the low relief letters of an inscription and bent to read it. God in heaven, my name in full, the date of my birth, the date of my death. A level shaft of light illuminated the whole side of the tree as I sprang to my feet in terror. The sun was rising in the rosy east. I stood between the tree and its broad red disk. No shadow darkened the trunk. Chorus of howling wolves saluted the dawn. I saw them sitting on their haunches, singly and in groups, on the summit of irregular mounds and tomai, filling a half of my desert prospect and extending to the horizon. And then I knew that these were the ruins of the ancient and famous city of Carcosa. Such are the facts imparted to the medium Bayrols by the spirit Joseb Alar Rubberidin. It's a weird ending to it. So that's the inhabitant of Carcosa. Sorry, my reading wasn't super great. I still get tongue-tied sometimes and go blah, 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 blah. But you can kind of see where some of the weirdness comes in, right? That then went on to Lovecraft. It's almost post-apocalyptic in a certain sense. Like the whole city is gone, the whole civilization is gone, there's nothing left. Yeah. Very weird. Very odd story. It feels like there's a lot of symbolism in what's going on. Like a lot of symbolism with all the animals that show up and all that stuff. Like why a lynx, and then the owls and the wolves are specific. So I'm sure there's a lot of symbolism going on under there, and you'd have to like go and analyze this thing. But man, I haven't read this. Maybe we'll have to read the King in Yellow later. We'll do that. I'm gonna take a break for a second and check up on Dog because he's whining. So I'm gonna see what he wants. So I will be back. Shoot. Yes, I was talking. Thank you. I was just chatting away. I was saying I was trying to find another short story to do. Something else fun. So yeah, as I said, I am good at this whole streaming thing. I'm so good at streaming. Look at me. I keep yapping without putting the sound on. Yep. Amassing. Okay. Well, I have never read this one either. Published in 1911, The Monkey's Paw. I suspect it's the... Yeah, be careful what you wish for, you may receive it.
Waiting till the last minute.
Nice. Looks good.
So.
Cool. Came out looking
I'm
good.
gonna get bye.
Okay, bye.
Everything's fine, okay?
Everything's fine.
Yeah.
Everything's awesome.
Sorry, hi stream.
B says hi to the stream. She was getting something set up for her thing today, and so she was doing it all a little bit last minute, just trying to get stuff working. Mark says hi. Mark. She says hi, Mark.
All right, you kids have fun.
We kids will have fun.
Sorry, you're about to have a very crying potato.
I know I'm about to have a very crying potato.
I'm so sorry about this, but I have to go.
Zephyr also says hi.
I don't know if they can hear me.
I don't know if nope. Okay. B says hi.
I will see you guys later.
See you later, alligator. All right.
Alligator's here.
Aw, I want an alligator. She said there are no alligators. Love you. All right. She is off on the road to Rhode Island. Sorry. That's a very random Family Guy reference. Early on in Family Guy, they did parodies of a lot of the old, like, yeah. Yes. Yes, I will go grab the laptop and charger and bring it to you. I'll be right back. Good. Oh man. Oh, chaos, which is fun sometimes. Anyway, so what was I talking? All right, Road to Rhode Island. Yeah. So early Family Guy, they made they did sketches making fun of the movies from like the 40s that were like Road to Somewhere Exotic, and they would often have a song in them, and so they did Road to Rhode Island, and so that song gets stuck in my head like randomly throughout the day. We're on now. Okay. Why are you doing that? That's very odd. Okay. So, The Monkey's Paw by W. Jacobs. Be careful for what you wish for, you may receive it. Part 1. Without the night was cold and wet, but in the small parlor of the Laborium Villa, The blinds were drawn and the fire burned brightly. Father and son were at chess, the former, who possessed ideas about the game involving radical chances, putting his king into such a sharp and unnecessary perils that even provoked comment from the white-haired old lady knitting placidly by the fire. "Hark at the wind," said Mr. White, who, having seen a fatal mistake after it was too late, was amiably desirous of preventing his son from seeing it. "I'm listening," said the latter, grimly surveying the board as he stretched out his hand. "Check." "I should hardly think he'll come tonight," said his father, with his hand poised over the board. "Mate," replied the son. "That's the worst of living so far out," bawled Mr. White with sudden and unlooked-for violence. "Of all the beastly, slushy, out-of-the-way places to live in, this is the worst. Path's a bog, the road's a torrent. I don't know what people are thinking about. I suppose because only 2 houses in the road are let, they think it doesn't matter." "Never mind, dear," said the wife soothingly. "Hold on. I hear someone crunching some plastic, which is probably not a good thing. I will be right back."
Oh, oh no. Oh no. The top here.
All right. I heard the crinkle of plastic. He also took out the remains of the cup. Oh goodness. Potato managed to take a cup that had chocolate ice cream in it out of the trash. So I got to chase him around for that. That was fun. Okay. Where were we? You'll get an eventful time here at the Stamos house. Okay. "Never mind, dear," says wife soothingly. "Perhaps really? Spam call at this hour?" "Never mind, dear," said the wife soothingly. "Perhaps you'll win the next one." Mr. White looked up sharply, just in time to intercept a knowing glance between mother and son. The words died away on his lips, and he hid a guilty grin in his thin gray beard. "There he is," said Herbert White, as the gate banged too loudly and the footsteps came to the door. The old man rose with hospitable haste, and opening the door was heard condoling with the new arrival. The new arrival also condoled with himself, so that Mrs. White said, "Tut, tut," and coughed gently as her husband entered the room, followed by a tall, burly man, beady of eye and rubicund of visage. "Sergeant Major Morris," he said, introducing him. The sergeant major took hands and taking... Potato, you're not... Oh my god. Potato, you're not supposed to go up the stairs. You never go up those... This dog, I swear. Dog's gonna be the death of me. Okay, the sergeant major took hands and, taking the proffered seat by the fire, watched contentedly as his host got out whiskey and tumblers and stood a small copper kettle on the fire. At the third glass, his eyes got brighter, and he began to talk with little family circle regarding him with eager interest, this visitor from distant parts, as he squared his broad shoulders on the chair and spoke of wild scenes and doughty deeds, of wars and plagues and strange peoples. 21 years of it," said Mr. White, nodding at his wife and son. "When he went away, he was a slip of a youth in the warehouse. Now look at him." "He doesn't look to have taken much harm," said Mrs. White politely. "I'd like to go to India myself," said the old man, "just to look around a bit, you know?" Better where you are, said the sergeant major, shaking his head. He put down the empty glass and, sighing softly, shook it again. I should like to see the old temples and the fakirs and jugglers, said the old man. What was that you started telling me the other day about a monkey's paw or something, Morris? Nothing, said the soldier hastily. Lestwise, nothing worth hearing. Monkey's paw, said Mrs. White curiously. Well, just a bit what you might call magic, perhaps, said the sergeant major offhandedly. His three listeners leaned forward eagerly. The visitor absent-mindedly put his empty glass to his lips and then set it down again. His host filled it for him one more time. To look at, said the sergeant major, fumbling in his pocket. It's just an ordinary little paw dried to a mummy. He took something out of his pocket and proffered it. Mrs. White drew back with a grimace, but her son, taking it, examined it curiously. What's special about it? Inquired Mr. White as he took it from his son, and having examined it, placed it upon the table. Had a spell put on it by an old fakir, said the sergeant major. A very holy man. He wanted to show that fate ruled people's lives, and that those who interfered with it did so to their sorrow. He put a spell on it, so that 3 separate men could each have 3 wishes from it. His manner was so impressive that his hearers were conscious of that their light laughter jarred somewhat. Well, why don't you have 3, sir? Said Herbert White cleverly. The soldier regarded him the way a middle age is wont to regard pompous youth. I have, he said quietly, and his botchy face whitened. Did you have your 3 wishes granted? Asked Mrs. White. I did, said the sergeant major, and his glass tapped against his strong teeth. Has anybody else wished? Persisted the old lady. The first man had his 3 wishes, yes, was the reply. I don't know what the first 2 were, but the third was for death, and that was how I got the paw. His tones were so grave that a hush fell upon the group. If you've had your 3 wishes, it's no good to you now then, Morris, said the old man at last. What do you keep it for? The soldier shook his head. Fancy, I suppose, he said slowly. I did have some idea of selling it, but I don't think I will. It caused me enough mischief already. Besides, people won't buy. They think it's a fairy tale, some of them, and those who do think anything of it want to try it first and pay me afterwards. If you could have another 3 wishes, said the old man, eyeing him keenly, would you have them? No, said the other. I don't know. He took the paw and, dangling it between the forefinger and thumb, suddenly threw it upon the fire. White, with a slight cry, stooped down and snatched it off. Better to let it burn, said the soldier solemnly. If you don't want it, Morris, said the other, give it to me. I won't, said his friend doggedly. I threw it in the fire. If you keep it, don't blame me for what happens. Pitch it in the fire like a sensible man. The other shook his head and examined his possession closely. How do you do it? He inquired. Hold it up in your right hand and wish aloud, said the sergeant major, but I warn you of the consequences. Sounds like Arabian Nights, said Mrs. White as she rose and began to set the supper. Don't you think you might wish for 4 pairs of hands for me? Her husband drew the talisman from his pocket, and all 3 burst into laughter as the sergeant major, with a look of alarm on his face, caught him by the arm. If you must wish, he said gruffly, wish for something sensible. Mr. White dropped it back in his pocket and, placing his chairs, motioned his friend to the table. In the business of supper, the talisman was partially forgotten, and afterwards the 3 sat listening in an enthralled fashion to a second installment of the soldier's adventures in India. The tale about the monkey's paw is not more truthful than he had been telling us, said Herbert, as the door closed behind their guest, just in time to catch the last train. We shan't make much out of it. Did you give anything for it, father? Inquired Mrs. White, regarding her husband closely. A trifle, said he, coloring slightly. He didn't want it, but I made him take it, and he pressed me again to throw it away. Likely, Herbert said with pretended horror. Why, we're going to be rich and famous and happy. Wish to be an emperor, father, to begin with, then you can't be henpecked. He darted around the table, pursued by the maligned Mrs. White, armed with an anti-masker. Mr. White took the paw from his pocket and eyed it dubiously. I don't know what to wish for, and that's a fact, he said slowly. It seems to me I got all I want. If you only had cleared the house, you'd be quite happy, wouldn't you? Said Herbert with his hand on his shoulder. Well, wish for £200 then, and that'll just do it. His father, smiling shamefacedly at his own credulity, held the talisman up. His son, with solemn face, somewhat marred by a wink at his mother, sat down and struck a few impressive chords. I wish for £200, said the old man distinctly. A fine crash from the piano greeted his words, interrupted by a shuddering cry from the old man. His wife and son ran towards him. It moved, he cried with a glance of disgust at the object that lay upon the floor. As I wished, it twisted in my hand like a snake. I don't see any money, said his son as he picked it up and placed it on the table. I bet I never shall. It must have been your fancy, father, said the wife, regarding him anxiously. He shook his head. Never mind, though. There's no harm done. It gave me a shock all the same. He sat down by the fire. While the two men finished their pipes, outside the wind was higher than ever, and the old man startled nervously at the sound of the door banging upstairs. A silence unusual and depressing settled on all three, which lasted until the old couple rose to retire for the rest of the night. Expect you'll find the cash tied up in a big bag in the middle of your bed, said Herbert as he bade them good night, and something horrible squatting on top of your wardrobe watching you as you pocket your ill-gotten gains. He sat alone in the darkness, gazing at the fire and seeing faces in it. The last was so horrible and so simian that he gazed at it in amazement. It got so vivid. With a little unease, he laughed and felt the table for a glass containing a little water to throw over it. His hand grasped the monkey's paw, and with a little shiver, he wiped his hand upon his coat and went to bed. Part 2. In the brightness of the wintry sun next morning, as it streamed over the breakfast table, he laughed at their fears. There was an air of prosaic wholesomeness about the room, which it had lacked the previous night, and the dirty, disheveled little paw was pitched on the sideboard with carelessness which bestowed no great belief in its virtues. I suppose old soldiers are the same, said Mrs. White. The idea of listening to such nonsense. How could wishes be granted in 3 days? And if they could, how would £200 hurt your father? Might drop on his head out of the sky, said the frivolous Herbert. Morris said the things happen so naturally, said his father, that you might, if you so wish, attribute it to coincidence. Well, don't break into the money before I come back, said Herbert as he rose from the table. I'm afraid it will turn you into a mean, avaricious man, and we shall have to disown you. His mother laughed, and following him to the door, watched him down the road, and returning to the breakfast table, was very happy at the expense of her husband's credulity, all of which did not prevent her from scurrying to the door at the postman's knock, nor prevent her from referring somewhat shortly to the retired sergeant majors of bilious habits when she found out the post brought the tailor's bill. Herbert will have some funny remarks, I expect, when he comes home, she said as they sat at dinner. I dare say, said Mr. White, pouring himself out some beer. But for all that, the thing moved in my hand, that I'll swear to. You thought it did. You thought it did, said the old lady soothingly. I say it did, said the other. There was no thought about it. It just... What's the matter? His wife made no reply. She was watching the mysterious movements of a man outside who, peering in an undecided fashion at the house, appeared to be trying to make up his mind to enter. In mental connection with the £200, she noticed that the stranger was well dressed, wore a silk hat of a glossy newness. 3 times he paused at the gate and then walked on again. The 4th time he stood with his hand upon it and with a sudden resolution flung it open and walked up the path. Mrs. White at the same moment placed her hand behind her and hurriedly unfastened the string of her apron, that useful article of apparel, beneath the cushion of her chair, and put that useful article of apparel underneath her cushioned chair. She brought the stranger, who seemed ill at ease, into the room. He gazed at her furtively and then listened in a preoccupied fashion to the old lady, apologizing for the appearance of the room and her husband's coat, a garment which he had reserved for the garden. Since then, she then waited as patiently as her sex would permit for him to broach the business, but he was at first strangely silent. I was asked to call, he said at last, and stooped to pick up a piece of cotton from his trousers. I came from Mon Megan's. The old lady startled. Is anything the matter? She breathed. Has anything happened to Herbert? What is it? What is it? Her husband interposed. There, mother, he said hastily. Sit down and don't jump to conclusions. You've not brought bad news, I'm sure, sir. He eyed the other wistfully. I'm sorry, said the visitor. Is he hurt? Demanded the mother wildly. The visitor bowed in assent. Badly hurt, he said quietly, but he is not in any pain. Oh, thank God, said the woman, clasping her hands. Thank God for that. She broke off as the sinister meaning of the assurance dawned on her, and she saw the awful confirmation of her fears in the other's averted face. She caught her breath and, turning her slow-witted husband, laid her trembling hand upon his. There was a long silence. He was caught in the machinery, said the visitor at length in a low voice. Caught in the machinery, repeated Mr. White in a dazed fashion. Yes. He sat staring out the window and, taking his wife's hand between his own, pressed it as he had been wont to do in their old courting days nearly 40 years before. He was the only one left to us, he said, turning gently to the visitor. It is hard. The other coughed and, rising, slowly walked to the window. The firm wishes me to convey their sincere sympathy with you in our great loss, he said, without looking round. I beg you will understand I am only their servant and merely obeying orders. There was no reply. The old woman's face was white, her eyes staring, her breath inaudible. On her husband's face was a look such as his friend the sergeant might have carried into his first action. I was to say that Mon Megan's claim all responsibility, continued the other. They admit to no liability at all, but in consideration of your son's services, they wish to present you with a certain sum as compensation. Mr. White dropped his wife's hand and, rising to his feet, gazed with a look of horror upon his visitor. His dry lips shaped the words, How much? 200 pounds, was the answer. Unconscious of his wife's shriek, the old man smiled faintly and put his hand, like a sightless man, and dropped to a senseless heap upon the floor. Part 3. In a huge new cemetery some 2 miles distant, the old people buried their dead and came back to the house steeped in shadow and silence. It's all over so quickly that at first they could hardly realize it and remained in their state of expectation as though something else to happen, something else which was to lighten the load too heavy for old hearts to bear. But the days passed and expectation gave way to resignation, the hopeless resignation of the old, sometimes miscalled apathy. Sometimes they hardly exchanged a word, for now they had nothing to talk about. Their days were long to weariness. It was about a week after the old man, waking suddenly in the night, stretched out his hand and found himself alone. The room was in the darkness, and the sound of subdued weeping came from the window. He raised himself in his bed and listened. Come back, he said tenderly. You'll be cold. It is colder for my son, said the old woman, and wept afresh. The sound of her sobs died away in his ears. The bed was warm, and his eyes were heavy with sleep. He dozed fitfully, and then slept until a sudden cry from his wife awoke him with a start. The paw! He cried wildly. The monkey's paw! He startled up with alarm. Where is it? What's the matter? She came stumbling across the room towards him. I want it, she said quietly. You've not destroyed it. It's in the parlor on the bracket, he replied, marveling. Why? She cried and laughed together, and bending over, kissed his cheek. I only just thought of it, she said hysterically. Why didn't I think of it before? Why didn't you think of it? Think of what? He questioned. The other 2 wishes, she replied rapidly. We've only had one. Was that not enough? He demanded fiercely. No, she cried triumphantly. We'll have one more. Go down and get it, and we'll wish our boy alive again. The old man in the bed flung the bedclothes from his quaking limbs. Good God, you're mad, he cried aghast. Get it, she panted. Get it quickly and wish. Oh, my boy, my boy. Her husband struck a match and lit a candle. Get back to bed, he said unsteadily. You don't know what you're saying. We had our first wish granted, said the old woman feverishly. Why not a second? A coincidence, stammered the old man. Go get it and wish, said his wife, quivering with excitement. The old man turned and regarded her. His voice shook. He's been dead for 10 days. And besides, I would not tell you else, but I could only recognize him by his clothing. He was too terrible for you to see then. How now? Bring him back, cried the old woman and dragged him towards the door. Do you think I fear the child I have nursed? He went down into the darkness and felt his way to the parlor and then to the mantelpiece. The talisman was in its place, and a horrible fear that was the unspoken wish might bring his mutilated son before him ere he could escape from the room, seized upon him, and he caught his breath as he found that he had lost the direction to the door. His brow was cold with sweat. Felt his way around the table and groped along the wall until he found himself in the small passage with the unwholesome thing in his hand. Even his wife's face seemed changed as he entered the room. It was white, expectant, and his fears seemed to have an unnatural look. Upon it. He was afraid of her. Wish, she cried in a strong voice. It is foolish and wicked, he faltered. Wish, repeated the wife. He raised his hand. I wish my son alive again. The talisman fell to the floor, and he regarded it fearfully, then sank trembling into a chair as the old woman, with burning eyes, walked to the window and raised the blind. He sat until he was chilled with the cold, glancing occasionally at the figure of the old woman peering through the window. The candle end, which was burned below the rim of the china candlestick, was stuck pulsing shadows on the ceiling and the walls until with a flicker longer than the rest had expired. The old man, with an unspeakable sense of relief at the failure of the talisman, crept back into his bed, and a minute after the old woman came silently and apathetically beside him. Neither spoke, but sat silently listening to the tick of the clock. A stair creaked, and a squeaky mouse scurried noisily through the wall. The darkness was oppressive. After lying for some time, screwing up his courage, he took out a box of matches and, striking one, went downstairs for a candle. At the foot of the stairs, the match went out, and he paused to strike another, and at the same moment a knock, so quietly and stealthily as to be scarcely audible, sounded at the front door. The matches fell from his hand and spilled on the passage. He stood motionless, his breath suspended until the knock was repeated. Then he turned and fled swiftly to his room and closed the door behind him. Third knock sounded throughout the house. What's that? Cried the old woman, starting up. A rat, said the old man in shaking tones. A rat. It passed me on the stairs. His wife sat up in bed listening. A loud knock resounded through the house. It's Herbert. He ran to the door, but her husband was before her, catching her arm and held her tightly. What are you going to do? He whispered hoarsely. It's my boy. It's Herbert, he cried, struggling mechanically. I forgot it was 2 miles away. What are you holding me for? I must go. I must open the door. For God's sake, don't let it in, cried the old man, trembling. You're afraid of your own son, she cried, struggling. Let me go. I'm coming, Herbert. I'm coming. There was another knock and another. The old woman, with a sudden wrench, broke free and ran from the room. Her husband followed to the landing and called her appealingly as she hurried down the stairs. He heard the chain rattle and the bolt drawn swiftly from the socket. The old woman's voice straining and panting. The bolt, she cried loudly. Come down, I can't reach it. But her husband was on his hands and knees, groping wildly on the floor in search of the paw. If only he could find it before the thing outside got in. Perfect fusillade of knocks reverberated through the house as he heard the scraping of a chair as his wife put put it down in the passage against the door. He heard the creaking of the bolt as it came slowly back. At the same moment, he found the monkey's paw and frantically breathed his third and last wish. The knocking ceased suddenly. Although the echoes of it were still throughout the house, he heard the chair drawn back. The door opened. A cold wind rushed up the staircase with a long, loud wail of disappointment and misery from the wife. Gave him the courage to run down to her side, then to the gate beyond. The street lamp flickering opposite shone on a quiet and deserted road. Huh. So that you never actually find out if it was the sun. You never find out if the wishes were real. Huh. That's cool. I've never read that story before. But I've seen the references, of course, right? Like this is a well-known story. But anyway, so thank you all for coming today to my stream. Do this. Do this. Do this. There we go. Thank you all for coming to my stream today. I will get better at reading aloud. It does take practice, and practice is what I need. Yeah, the ending was cool. Like, it could have been so over the top, and it wasn't. And so you're left wondering, was it that the wish made the son come back alive and then sent him away? Or were there no real wishes at all? And I love that ambiguity. You get that a lot with Hawthorne. Hawthorne talks about that in the preface to House of the Seven Gables. He talked about it. I should read that sometime. That would be a good thing to read. Anyway, neither here nor there. But yeah, he talks about how you want to use the touch of the supernatural, right? And that's just enough to darken the shadows and give everything kind of a hint, you know. So yeah, I actually really like how that ended. I see now why it became a reused trope, right? A lot of stories, a lot of media will use this trope of the monkey's paw. I think even The Simpsons did it for one of their Halloween specials. At any rate, yeah, so that was fun. If you have any ideas for things you would like me to try reading, or anything, any papers that you would like me to go through for our Sunday morning papers this coming Sunday, please let me know. Yeah, I think next Tuesday we owe some more of The Hobbit. So we'll keep reading through The Hobbit. We've got to make our way through the rest of that book. In the meantime, I believe we shall go ahead and raid. Toasty morsel. Let me make sure I got that right. I want to raid the correct person. Let's see. Toasty morsel. All right, so this should work. Thank you again for coming in. Enjoy your evening. Enjoy your time with Toasty. She's continuing to play her game about the Berlin apartment, I think. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Like I said, I'll get better at this. I'm new at this reading aloud. I'm trying to get better. I will get better eventually. It just takes practice. So thank you for coming in to a work in progress. At any rate, we will now raid. I I hope you enjoy. Thank you so much again, and I will catch you on the next stream.